Hi, my name is Mahyar, and in this tutorial we will model and render a Google Pixel phone from start to finish in Blender. Along the way you will also learn how to create the texture maps in Figma. But if you'd rather skip that part, you can download all the texture maps from my Telegram channel. The link is in the description. Now let's get started.
Okay, first we need to gather some reference images for modeling the phone. I'm using GSM Arena for this. Most of the angles of the phone has been covered. For the angles that we don't have here, for example top and bottom, you can use this 3D interactive object here. I'll rotate the phone to the angle that I want and take a screenshot from, for example, top and bottom of the phone to use it on Blender. Go back to GSM Arena and go to specifications. Here you can see the phone dimensions. I have to create a mesh with this exact dimensions so that I can place my reference images at the correct proportion. I go to the front view, press Shift A and create a cube. Press N. You can see the dimension here. In the Z direction, it has to be 162.8 millimeters. The default units on Blender are meters, so we have to divide it by 1000. The X direction is 76.6 millimeters. And I'll do it for the thickness of the phone. Now, if you press the dot on the numpad, we can see that here is the phone bounding box dimension. I go back to the front view, press Shift A and add a reference image. As you can see, it is too big. We should scale it so that it matches our guide mesh. Press Alt Z to make the mesh transparent so that we can scale it easily. As you can see, it is perfectly matched with our dimension. First, we need to select the image and rename it to front. I press M and create a new collection as ref. Now, in the image properties, we want to only show it in orthographic view angles, for example, only in front. We want it to only be visible when we are looking at it from its front. So when we go to the back view, we don't want to see any image of the front view. You can always see the keys I press in the bottom right of the screen. We are in the top view. You can see that the camera part that is sticked out are not included in the dimension. Okay, we now have all the reference images that we want. We go to the front view. Here's the mesh that I'm using to model the phone. Since we have changed the dimensions of the cube that we created, its scaling is not one in all size anymore. So before we do any modifications on this mesh, we have to press Ctrl A and press all transforms to make the scaling perfect. Otherwise, when we want to bevel some edges, we have different bevel radius in the different sides of the mesh, and that's not what we want. Okay, now I want to start modeling the frame of the phone. Since in some places, like the top view, we have curvature that are being cut by microphone and this patch here, we might need to use a subdivision surface in order to use shrink wrap modifier to have perfect curvature and reflections on the body panel. I first model the frame by insetting the surface. I select the front surface, inset it in a round number. 1 millimeter is good. I will repeat the process for the back surface. And I will delete these two surfaces. Okay. Now, before we make a subdivision surface modifier, I want to delete 3/4 of this frame, because before we make any patches and holes, everything is symmetrical. So it's easier for us to model 1/4 of the frame. And add mirror modifier. Okay. Now, in order to have a perfect radius here, we have to do it manually here first, and then we go to adding edge loops and support loops. I bevel this in an even number. Now that I am seeing, in order to have a perfect circular shape here, all the curves you see here from screen to the edge of the phone should have the same center of the circle. So they should all converge to a point here. But as you can see, when we inset this surface, due to the height of the phone and the displacement from the center of the phone, all the lines are converging to somewhere in the center of the phone, and that's not what we want, because the curvature here should be regardless of the height of the phone. I will delete these edges, and I will copy one of these vertices and place it on the center that I want, and then extrude these edges along that center. Make sure the snapping is on the vertex. It is deactivated now. I can activate it whenever I need by holding down the control button. I will copy this vertex by Shift D. It is in the move mode. Press Z and hold down the control and place my cursor on this vertex. Now this is a circle. This is a circular shape with the center of this place. Now I can place the 3D cursor here by holding down Shift S and cursor to selected. I don't need this vertex anymore. I will select this one, press E, S. Now I'm scaling towards this place. That's not what I want. I will press Ctrl Z. Set this to 3D cursor. Now I select this by holding down Ctrl, E, S. I go to the front view. I can copy this edge that I have made here by Shift D Y control. Now this is the perfect rail that I want along the frame of the phone. Now I can press these two vertices, E, Z. I can now press F and F. Make sure to delete this center surface. Select these two vertices, E, Z, here. And this. This is the perfect shape that we want. Now, in order to have a flat surface from this point onwards, I can press an edge loop here and another edge loop here as a support loop. Now we are ready to add a subdivision surface modifier. You can simply search for subdivision surface here and add two level, or it's an easier way to press Ctrl 2 to have two levels of subdivision surface. And shade auto smooth. Now we need some support loops here. To match the phone's curvature, I think that's perfect. Now we have the base frame that we want. All is left is just adding cuts and buttons to this surface. So I will copy this frame as a backup. I will rename it to frame backup. And duplicate it by Shift D. You can now apply the mirror modifier because nothing is symmetrical anymore from this point. Since our backup frame is our reference frame for applying shrink wrap modifier, it should always have two more levels of subdivision surface than our actual frame. I will hide it now and add to its level of subdivision surface. Now I go to our frame. Let's start with modeling, for example, this microphone hole. I can delete this vertex. Circle. It's still on the 3D cursor. I will press Ctrl Z. Cursor to selected. Now at the circle. 16 is too much. 8 is enough. Scale it down. Go to the front view. Try to match it as close as possible to the surface. Before we connect it to the surface, I will make it larger and then inset it so that we have a support loop here. Now we can connect this to the surface. I set the matte cap to something shiny like this one. As you can see, we have reflection problems here, but now we can add shrink wrap modifier. First, we should recalculate our surface. Make sure face orientation is turned on now. Every face that is flipped will be red like this. Shade auto smooth. You can see that we have some reflection problems here. Now we can use shrink wrap modifier. Let's first extrude this inwards. I want to also press F, then inset. It's messed up here, the reflections. Press all of the vertices, press Alt Z to look them in transparent view. Deselect this one. Go to the vertex groups, create new vertex group and assign these selected ones to this vertex group. Now you can select it and that's correct. Go to the modifier section and add a shrink wrap modifier. Vertex group is what we have made and target is frame backup. As you can see, the reflections is perfect, but from the edge you can see this is too sharp. In the vertex group, we can first remove this from the group, make its weight around, for example, 0.5, and assign it again. Also, we can add an edge loop here. That's really nice. Maybe we can add this one at weight 1, but remove this one and assign it at a weight low. Play with these numbers. That's good. Now let's go here, change the matte cap to something more visible. Bring the 3D cursor here. Create a circle here. Delete these vertices. Press L, Shift D, X, S, X, -1. Active element GX, F, I can delete this edge and copy from the above. Shift D, Y, L, M by distance. Two vertices are joined. GZ. I will delete these surfaces here. I will delete faces. Now, I will move these vertices down as close as possible to the surface. Deselect this one and remain only this one. GZ. Okay, now I'll go to the top view. I think we can select these vertices in the bounding box center SX to make them closer, move them closer to the circular shape. Now we can connect them. Select, press dot to focus on the view. The edge flow here is not good enough. Move this here, because after shrink wrap all of them will have the same curvature as a perfect frame that we have made before. I will bring this here and add an extra edge loop here for this one and here for this one. In order to make sure we have not corrupted the curvature here, I Ctrl X this one and this one. Go to the vertex group, select what you have so far. Okay, I will add these new ones to the vertex group. To dictate how triangulation should work, I will connect these ones J so that we don't have stretched surfaces. Blender itself in the background creates surfaces by connecting the vertices together, and by cutting these ourselves are dictating to Blender how should cut the surfaces. I will repeat the process here. I go to the edge mode, select this edge ring, Ctrl 3 to surface, E, extrude it downwards, remove it from the surface group, the vertex group. Now we have the perfect curved surface. Due to not having edge loops here, the surfaces is not good here because we have concave shape. I will cut down here and here. Perfect. I will definitely work more on this hole to make it more aligned. It has too much distance from the perfect frame that we have made. I think this is the best reflection possible we can get from polymodeling. If we want more perfect curvatures and product ready 3D work, we have to use NURBS tools like, for example, Rhino or SolidWorks. But in the world of visualization, we try our best to have surfaces as close as possible to curvature we can achieve in NURBS tools. Okay, let's continue with the volume and power button. Maybe in the places that we don't need to have curvatures cut, we will exclude those places from the shrink wrap vertex group. For example, all of the vertices here can be excluded from vertex group because these surfaces are flat, unlike these surfaces. Okay, place 3D cursor here. Create a circle, align to view, scale it down, remove these bottom ones. Add another edge loop here to support this. I can delete this one. Later, when we create the top part of the button, we can duplicate and mirror it for the bottom part. I'll remove these vertices. Extrude this. Just like that. I press dot into numpad to focus on the selected vertex. Extrude Z, Control, EZ, Control, FF. Now we can Shift D, Z this part, select and deselect this vertex, active element, I hold down the dot to pivot, to select the pivot point to set that to active element, GZ, SZ -1, GZ. This is perfectly matched with this part. Now we can recalculate outside. And we should merge by distance this part. Okay, now select this part. We can inset it. Inset it one more time. And also create an edge loop. Press E to match with the left part, the inner part. Now we can extrude these edge rings. These ones. One is for the edge of the button and one is for edge of the loop, edge of the hole, and here the middle edge loop is the space between the button and the hole. Control 3 to select surfaces, E, X, and one more time EX. Now we have to move the button, stick it out around half a millimeter. Control plus till I select the first support loop. that was created by extruding, and press GX005. Is too much. GX0005. That's not perfect because, as you can see, it's somehow oval shaped. Why? Because it needs an edge loop here after the circular shape to preserve the circular shape. Now is the capsule form of the button. Now we can slide this edge loop to make it more round. As you can see, we don't need any shrink wrap here. Now repeat this process for this part. Shift. First I will slide this or move this, doesn't matter because it's flat. Select this part, make sure to be in transparent mode to make sure all vertices is selected. Shift D, Z, match it with the volume rocker. To make it in the center, we can Control X it and add another one. Now we can create an edge loop here, a surface loop here, and also we can move this here and merge by distance. That is the volume button. Now we go to the bottom part of the phone. Here is the part that we need shrink wrap again, especially for this parts that overlap the curved corners. Okay, then we can hide the top part for the moment. Go to the button. I will move the bottom image to make the port and the speaker centered. I think this is good. Cursor to selected. Shift A, circle, scale it down. I added 15 cuts here. Deselect first and last vertex, Control X. I will add 15 here too, just to make sure the same distance from the edge. Control X. We can press F and inset, and also extruding inwards. Another one. I press Shift DZ and I select this one and delete faces. Now I have a separate face here. Okay, now come here and split these two vertices. Before that, I will add an edge loop here. I will make sure that I have the exact edge loop here in the guide mesh. The more geometry the guide mesh have, the better reflection would be. Now I go to the front view and try to align these vertices, this curvature, to have more precise shrink wrap. Now as you can see, the surface is flipped. I press Alt by pressing A and Shift N. Now I need to include these vertices to the vertex group I am using for shrink wrap. I will select this. I will press Alt Z to select all of the vertices here. Go to the front view, hold down the Control button, and deselect these ones. I go to the vertex group and with the weight of 1, assign these new vertices. Now you can see that before and after shrink wrap, the reflections are improved. The reflections are improved. I think I mistakenly assigned this vertices to the vertex group 2. I should remove them. Shade auto smooth. That's perfect. I can remove these two and assign them by the weight a little lower than 1 to prevent from having too sharp edges. I continue to the USB Type-C port. I place 3D cursor here. Add a plane. Decrease its dimension. Scale it down. SY. I press Ctrl-Shift-B to bevel the corners, and I will increase the number of segments by scrolling the mouse. And I also add some edge loops to control the curvature here. One here and repeat for here, here, and here. I will add some cuts here. I add, for example, 12. These are the 12 vertices that I have inserted. I deselect the first and last one and press Ctrl X. I repeat the process for the bottom part. Here's the port we want to add. In the guide mesh, we have a segment here repeated all over the phone because we have modeled a quarter of the phone in the guide mesh. I will dissolve this added edges here. This is the edge that I have added for the speaker hole. I will Ctrl X here. I also can repeat the process for here and here. I can dissolve these two. Now I will delete this vertex. I will extrude this to inside. Press X, faces. I also delete this face too. I can add an edge loop here and here. I can press F and press I to inset a little bit. And use this as the diameter for the diameter for the USB port. Now I can expand this inset by pressing G twice and press C to preserve its direction and have a safe edge loop around my USB port. I'll create a face here. And here. Now you can see we have, due to the concave shape, we have some overlaps here. We can simply press J to join here and here to dictate Blender how to triangulate. Perfect. Same process here. Due to this part being flat, we don't need to shrink wrap this part of the mesh because the surface is perfectly flat here. But if I see any flaws and defects in reflections, I may shrink wrap here too. But so far, I see no problem. I will add an edge loop here, press Ctrl plus and delete these vertices. For this part, I will search for grid fill. As you can see, it is twisted. I will offset it to align with my grid line. That's good. I can select this edge loop here, press Shift D and press F. I should select all and press Shift N. This surface is still inverted. I select it and press Alt N and flip. I think that USB Type-C port is too thick inside. Select this, bounding box center, S, Y, and also S, X. Maybe I should move that a little bit inside. Good. Now we continue to the microphone ports. I will slide this edge. Here we still don't need to shrink wrap. So that's not so important to match the reference model. I select this part, add an edge loop. I can bevel this edge to have two edge loops at the left and right of my edge loop. I press the vertex, press Ctrl Shift B. Two segments, but the profile shape this is good. I can scale it a little bit and inset it. Control minus X vertices. Actually has a surface, I should just flip it. Alt N, flip. Now we go to SIM card tray. I can use these vertices and copy paste. Shift D, X, Control. Go to the bottom. Scale. Shift X, S, X minus 1. It's better to add a loop here to better align with the frame. I can copy this hole, Shift DX. Deselect this part. I'm trying to deselect the edge loop near to the surface. I should remove this one too. Can make them 0.9. Shade auto smooth. Also make it 0.9. I will turn on shadow and cavity to, I think shadow is redundant, the cavity is good to see the details better. Now we should check all of the angles to see if anything missing. We should model the antennas. Since I have placed a control loop here, I think when we add another edge loop here, the curvature won't change. Two control loops here. Another one here. I can simply slide this edge to the left. G, X, and add another edge loop here. I think we are done with the frame. We should go on with screen and back panel. I will extract these edges and apply the subdivision modifier and simply just create a flat surface for them. I will press Shift D, right click, P, selection. I separated the edge for creating the screen. I rename it to screen. I remove redundant vertices because here it's a flat surface. We don't need the vertices that are coming from antenna or side buttons. I think there's a problem with these vertices here. Yeah, the problem is shrink wrap. Yeah, I should have deleted shrink wrap modifier. Now everything is perfect. I also don't need any vertex group in this new mesh. Now I inset merge by distance. Maybe in the future I want to add a little bevel here and here in this intersection. So it's better to add another inset to keep the mesh clean in the edges. I press G, X, and G, Z. Again, G, X, GZ. This one is redundant. At last. GZ. I press Shift and recalculate the surface. I go to the front view and I need to create a circle here for the camera. That's definitely not a hole, but it should be something like a dark glass, and behind that I will model the camera. I also can use a texture instead of camera, but for more realistic result, it's better to model the camera and use less texture in this part. I add a circle here, align to view, decrease its diameter. $32 is too much, but I don't know if I should go with discount or not. Maybe 24 is good. I press grid fill for the camera part. Now I will copy and extract the edge of the circle so that I can use it as a separate mesh for the camera beneath this surface. Shift D, P, selection, and I rename it to selfie cam. I will slide this inset edge so that it matches with the bezels of the screen. Press E. That's perfect. In the material creation section, I will use this edge rings to assign a separate material to this part. I'm trying my best to model the phone as clean as possible for close-shot renders. I will separate this part and I will delete all of these vertices here. I will join these parts again together. I will apply the subdivision surface. Now, when I go back to edit mode, I have the perfect curvature I wanted without having any subdivision surface modifier. Now I will delete this subdivision surface modifier, and that was remained on the selfie cam glass. Now I can press Ctrl J and join them back together. Press E, M by distance, press G, Z, and G, X, G, Y. Perfect. We can clean these redundant edge loops. Ctrl B. This one. Delete the center vertex. Now this is good. We can continue with selfie cam. Before that, I want to extrude this edge inside to the phone so that I can bevel it later when I want to tweak the phone's final details. Now I will continue with the selfie cam. I will extrude this inside to the phone. The bounding box center ES. I will remove the subdivision surface modifier. Extrude it again. Shade auto smooth. And now I can go to the edit mode, go to the front view and add a sphere. With the same UV counts. I can increase its radius. It's too much. That's actually not too much. I can later scale it in the Y direction. Now I just move it to the Y. I will isolate it with slash. Now I can go to the right view, go to the transparent view with Alt-Z and delete the redundant vertices that won't be shown. I won't use a transparent material for the lens because I don't want any light to bleed inside this phone. I just use a shiny material for it. Delete this redundant vertex. Now I think we should model the speaker inset here. I go to the edge view, add 6 edges. Select this one and Ctrl X. Repeat the process for this side too. We can bevel this one. Go to the vertex mode, press GZ, and you can also press Ctrl and face it here. We can simply select this edge loop and press V to separate that from mesh. For this part, we need to move this towards x-axis, gx, now we can bevel this corner and the bevel shape. We can merge by distance, decrease the distance. For the inner side of this part of frame, since we have subdivision surface, after extruding we should have a support loop here. I extrude it towards Y, EY. Don't forget to remove it from the vertex group. And I also remove this edge here. I will look around the phone to see if removing this from vertex group can cause any problem. It seems that no problem will happen. So it's ready for adding the support loop. And also another support loop here. We can bevel here too to match the final result that we want. Maybe half millimeter is too much. This is good. Now I rename this screen. I go to the back side of the phone. You know what? I also renamed the frame backup to frame guide because it's guide mesh, not backup. I hide it again. I go to the back side of the phone. I want to extract this outer edge of the frame to use it for the back panel. I press Shift D, right click, P, selection, tab out, and rename this one to back panel. We have vertex group here. I can delete it. We have shrink wrap. We can remove it. Before removing the subdivision surface, we have to delete our redundant vertices. Control X. That first one was for antenna, so it's redundant. I will delete these two by Control X. We have one here. Okay, we're ready to go. Now we can apply this subdivision surface. Press A, press F, inset inside. Before we inset, we can delete these ones that are on a flat surface, because they don't have any effect on the geometry. Then I'm ready to inset. I can inset once more to make them close together. Now we are ready to merge by distance. I increase it until I get to 1 point, 1 vertex per corner. Press enter. And we are now have a perfectly flat surface. Now I have to add an extrusion here, and I'm inside the frame. I want to remove this extruded vertices from the shrink wrap vertex group. Press Alt C to see the result. I also select this edge and remove this. Make weight 0.9 and assign it again. Not the result I need. I totally remove this and add a control loop because we don't need any shrink wrap here. I think we need a more sharper edges in the back panel. I can add another edge loop here to make it more sharp. Since we have end guns here, we can't create edge loops here, so I have to manipulate here by just this edge loop. I think it's good. I will add extrusion for the back panel too. I need to bevel this edge. Perfect. We now need to model the camera part, the camera island. Press Alt Z. I center the 3D cursor. Create a circle mesh. Increase the number of vertices to 64. I scale it up. I delete the half. GX, Shift DX, SX minus 1, GX, now I press F, insert it inside. Deselect these vertices and move that once. Now we can add a control loop here. Press X, vertices to delete that surface. We now have a surface and a curve. Let's move it G, Y. Go to vertex mode. Now I will delete this face. We can extrude it. E, Y. Now we can delete the face. Select all and Shift N. Alt Z. Delete faces. Now we select these vertices outside. Go to the right view. G, Y. Because we want to have a bevel later, I have to select these outer vertices, create a face, create an inset to have a perfect edge loop for beveling it out, and then I will delete the face. Now we have a perfect edge loop for beveling. I can use the same trick for this one with a big difference. I create the face, I inset it, delete the face, select the edge, I press G twice to slide, press C to keep the direction, but I will go outside to create that edge loop. I select this part with L and press Alt and flip. Now I can create an edge loop here. Press Ctrl to snap to this vertex. Select these 4 vertices. Press F. Deselect these 2 first. Press F until it match up until here. Repeat the process here. Now we need to create 2 holes for the flash and LiDAR. Copy this. Cursor to selected. Add a circle mesh. Align to view. Decrease the number of vertices to 32. Scale it up. We can now delete this vertex. Make sure this is the same level. To make sure this is symmetrical to this one, we can go to active element mode. We now see that this is the center. This is the axis we want to mirror this circle. We can press this one, Shift D, S, Z, -1. That perfectly came downwards. We can do this after we created this part. Since this is a perfect circle, we can have the edge loop for beveling without needing to create face and inset. We can simply go to bounding box center, press E to extrude, press F. Since it doesn't have any dimension in Y-axis, we don't need to press Shift Y. Now we can select all of this part with L. Select this center here. Press Shift D. S, Z, -1. I forgot to go to the active element mode. SZ -1. I have to flip this part. Now we have duplicated this vertex here too. I select this one, press M by distance and decrease it. Remove 1 vertex. Now we have to create a face here. I will dictate some faces to Blender. I just want to make the mesh clean. It may not have any result in final shape, but I want everything to be clean. One is redundant. And distribute the space with loop tools. If loop tools is not enabled for you, you can enable it in Blender add-on settings. We only have this part to handle. Press F. I have perfect edge loops at the edges so that I can bevel them out for a smoother and more realistic edges. Create bevels here. For beveling, I want to take a look at the reference image. If you take a look at Pixel 9 Pro XL images in real life, the edges are pretty sharp, so I don't give too much bevel to it. Okay, now we are going to model the lenses here. I add a circle with 64 vertices. I Control A, apply all transforms to have perfect one scale. I select the circle, move it in the Y direction, select camera island and circle together, press tab. I did this because I want to snap circle to the vertical center of this island. I go to the back view, select the middle vertex, press G, Z. Now it's perfectly vertically centered. I should take a look how lenses look like in real world. As you can see, we have also mic hole here. We have two objects here. I can handle the dark and transparent parts of the glass with texture, but I have to model the three cameras in Blender. There also should be a gap between the glass cover and the metal island. We also should have a radius here to be more realistic. Okay, first I add the radius here so that I won't forget. I select the metal island. I isolate it. As you can see, we should have a symmetrical shape in the y-axis. So I will set the object origin to somewhere in the center by adding an edge loop in the center, pressing cursor to select it. I'm sure that 3D cursor is somewhere in the middle of this object. Now I tab out of edit mode and set origin to 3D cursor. Now I go to the edit mode, delete these vertices here. I can easily add a mirror modifier in the Z direction of the local object. The local Z is in the world Y direction. Now we can apply this modifier. Now we have also a beveled edge here. We can select these two edges and press bridge. We need to twist to match. Now I want to model the glass. I extract this edge, Shift D, P selection. I will rename it to camera glass. Go to edit mode. Press AF. I wanted to have a thickness. I can inset it. Grid fill. It's perfect. Now for adding thickness, we can add solidify modifier. We can hide the glass for now. Now I have to model the camera part. Later I have to add a hole in the glass and also model the contents inside these two holes. I go to the bounding box mode, ES scale. As you can see, it's somehow going upwards. I scale once more, ES. I go downwards. This is all guesswork. That won't be too much visible when I add the glass. Scale it. EY, ES. Shade auto smooth. I decrease the angle to 10 degrees to include this edge too. We can add a bevel modifier, angle 10, decrease its radius to increase the segments to 4. I think that's a good one. I select this edge, cursor to selected, go to the back view, add a sphere, UV sphere, align to view, decrease the radius. Since I want this sphere to be smoother, I select all of this, and since I don't want the sphere to be beveled, I remove that from the outer ring and decrease its bevel radius. I think that's good enough. I delete the redundant vertices. Now I can simply select these two, copy them, place them here. I can hold down the shift to move it slowly. Tab into edit mode, select all into the bounding box center. I will scale them down. Now I go to the active element, press GY to make it the same level as these two. After modeling the third camera, I should move all of them inside. To avoid any light bleed here, I have to add a surface behind all of these cameras. Maybe I have to hide the screen. Let's hide this to see. Okay, I add a plane mesh. I can scale it down. Only part of this circle will be visible due to the black opaque part of the front glass. I want to go to edit mode, Ctrl Shift B to. Before that I have to apply all the transforms. Ctrl A, all transforms. A, select all the 4 vertices, Ctrl Shift B. Select all, press Inset. I also extrude outer edge. I can extrude it once more and once more and inset it. I can extrude it once more and delete the face. I can Control Alt and select this edge ring, Control F, extrude faces along normals and make them go in. Shade Auto Smooth. I think one step is too much. I select this one. Delete this vertex, that was too much. Add a sphere here, but this time I want to increase its face count and its ring count. I want to scale them up. I want to scale them in the y-axis, make them a little bit flat. And also bevel these corners by Ctrl-Shift-B. Now I think with a shiny surface I can mimic the lens here. Press GY to move this back, and press GY and select one of these vertices, holding down Ctrl to make them the same surface. I want to apply bevel modifier here. And here, so that I can merge them all together. Ctrl J to merge them. Now we can unhide the camera glass. I didn't select the lenses. I joined them again. I renamed them to cameras. Now I can move them back. And later when we create materials, we can check the object's position. Now I want to create a surface here and here for the missing parts. Now I extract a curve for the glass that is above the flash LED. Add a solidify modifier. Now I can duplicate it, move it inside, remove the solidify modifier and use it as a texture plane that is going to show the LED flash. Something like this. Rename it to flash. For this one, I just need a plane that I will assign a shiny material, shiny black material to it. Because now you are seeing it white because there's a white surface above it and it's reflecting its light. As you can see, we can see this white object here. But in another angles, as you can see, it becomes black. Back to Blender. I can duplicate this, select camera island and this plane together, press tab, GZ, GY, I create a edge loop displace. I choose this one as the place for the hole. It's maybe for the mic. Control Shift B. Since we have solidify modifier, there's no need to extrude. I hide the glass for the moment. I borrow a inside edge from the camera island to create a plane behind these objects. That actually works fine with this gap here. Now I can unhide the camera glass and backpack. It seems like all is left is unwrapping. All the surfaces that need to have texture should be unwrapped. But the materials that are not including any pattern, for example, plain shiny metal material or plain plastic material, they don't need to be unwrapped. First, I need to unwrap the screen because I want to use texture for the screen and the bezel. And also I want to use glass material for this part of the screen. The other object that needs to be unwrapped is the camera glass because some part of it needs to be transparent and other parts needs to be opaque. Since I don't want to have any imperfection or dust and rust on the object, since it's a product visualization and not a, for example, game object, other parts of the phone don't need to be unwrapped. Before applying this solidify modifier, I will unwrap the object and then apply the modifier. That way, they will not add extra space on the UV. I can simply project, select all, press U, Smart UV project, unwrap it. Now, when we apply the solidify modifier, all of these are overlapped. UV project this one too. As you can see, there are the side edges of the screen. Are Z 180 degrees. Later, we need to add the UI screen here. I need to unwrap the back panel because I want the Google logo to be texture, not mesh. Unwrapping is very easy. Select all U Smart UV project. As you can see, I have to rotate it 180 degrees to align with the y-axis. Now we need to unwrap the flash. First, I hide the glass, and we need to unwrap this part so that we can place the flash image on it. I place it perfectly in the center of this UV map. I should check it out to see if everything is good. As you see, we have some problem here because this is an N-gon. From this vertex, we don't have the edge loop. I have to add it manually here and connect these vertices by hitting J. Now I want to isolate and separate these antenna places. I press Alt-Z and press V and right click. As you see, if I isolate this frame, as you see, we have round corners here due to subdivision. We have to go to advanced and keep corners. This way, when we separate these vertices, the corners will remain angular. I do the same process with other antenna parts. I was looking at the reference images and saw that I missed an antenna. I will add that right now. The missing antenna is between the USB Type-C port and this microphone hole. I go to the front view, press Alt-C. I will add antenna somewhere here. I press K for knife tool and press C for cutting through so that the vertices behind the front surface will be cut. I click enter, K, C, enter. Now, to have a perfect vertical line, we have to scale these vertices towards x-axis, SX0. SX0. Now we can safely press V and separate this antenna part. It's now completely ready for shading process. Before that, I want to organize my file and select and create an empty to move the phone and rotate it more easily by rotating that empty. Before that, I press Shift S and cursor to world origin, Shift A, empty plane axis. I decrease its size and I rename it to pixel. Now I select all of the meshes, and as you see, I have unhidden the guide mesh so that it gets selected too. Press Ctrl to deselect the empty that we have created and select it as the last object. Press Ctrl P, object. Now all of the selected meshes are child of the pixel, and when we move or rotate the empty, the phone comes and rotates and moves with it. Now we can safely hide the guide mesh, and our phone is ready for shading. In order to preview our material that we are creating, we need a lighting setup. For a faster lighting setup, I will use HDRI texture. One of the famous resources is Polyhaven. This is the HDRI texture I'm using for previewing my material. I will press N to close this. I will add vertical split here and use my shader editor here. I go to the world settings, create a image texture input. Don't forget to go to preferences and add-ons, search for Node Wrangler and make sure it is enabled. After enabling the Node Wrangler, you can select the background and press Ctrl T. Open the texture you have downloaded. Now, as you can see, we have the environment loading because we don't have any material yet. The phone is rendering white. We can later change the rotation of the environment to see how our material reacts to the light. Now I go to the object mode. I start by setting materials for our frame. I set our render engine to cycles for a more realistic result and select the frame, add a new material. I rename it to frame. I make the metallic 1, set the color to 5D, and set the roughness to 0.15. Now I can go to the world and rotate the environment. I want to have a lighting here. I go back to the object mode and select the back panel. For the back panel part, we have two sets of materials here. One shiny material for the Google logo and one matte material for the rest of the back panel. We have to handle this by a black and white map that we create on a 2D software like Photoshop or Figma, because we don't have any mesh to separate the Google logo from the rest of the back panel. I go to the Figma for creating this map. Before that, I have to go to the UV editing mode and select all of the vertices of this back panel mesh. I have unwrapped its UV map before. I just have to export UV layout for importing that into Figma. I go to the Figma and Ctrl-Shift-K or import image. Select the UV. As you can see, its resolution is 1K. I frame selection or Ctrl-Alt-G. Now I have a frame that's inside it. This is the UV map that I have imported. Now I need to import the back image of the Google Pixel.
and I want to scale it to match the inner line with the outer line of this UV. First, I need to make its opacity 50% so that I can see what's beneath it. Now the Google logo should be placed here. For importing Google logo vector that has the desired quality, I have to use a SVG file. I can use it by importing it from BrandFetch, a plugin in Figma that can load up logos for you. Search Google and don't forget to import the SVG one. Now the SVG that I've imported has too many parts that are masked into the desired Google SVG outline. I have to use this vector for our UV map. I press Enter, select all of these vertices, Ctrl C to copy it, and select the frame, Ctrl V to paste it. I will make it white and make the background of the frame black. Plus 000. Now I select it, press 5 to make the opacity 50%. Scale it down to match the reference. I think it's good. Press 0 to turn the opacity back to 100. Now we can safely press Ctrl and select these images inside the frame and only export this frame. I want the frame to be 4K resolution, so in the export, in the bottom right, I select plus and select 4 to make the export 4K. Export frame, go to the layout, select the back panel. For the matte part of the material, I press plus and I rename it to back matte. I set its color to pure black and I will change the roughness to something like 0.45. I want to have a kind of noisy texture to mimic its sandblast material. I can use noise texture, Shift A, texture, noise texture. I search for bump and connect its height to the factor here and connect it to the normal. As you can see, it's too much large. I increase the scale to 400 to make it smaller. I will change the strength to 0.01 just to have a slight sandblast. Now we need to import our texture map for masking out the Google logo here. I want to create a glossy material for the Google logo part. I will insert glossy BSDF shader and change the color to 1A1A1A. I connect it to the final output to see the result. I change the roughness to 0.1. Now we have a shiny material that we can use for Google logo. Maybe 0.05. I want to make it more shiny. Now we need to mix these shaders together. I add a mix shader. I connect the Google logo to the second one and the matte material to first one. Now we need to connect our image texture to the factor here. I search for image texture. I press Ctrl T to using UV for its vector. I open the map that we have exported using Figma. Open it and connect it to the factor here. Now connect the output to surface. As you can see, we have now the Google logo here. Now I forgot to create the antenna materials here, the antenna cuts. I select the frame here, add a new slot, and rename it to, create a material and rename it to antenna. I first need to select the antenna part. I go to the solid mode and select the parts I want to be antenna. Press L since they are detached. No antenna on the left part of the phone. I'm seeing an antenna here. So let me move this. Yeah, we have an antenna here. So I have to add a cut. Go to the left view, GZ. And another cut here. Press V, right click, and V, right click. We have to reselect all again. Now we can select this one and press assign. Now we can go to render view. And edit the antenna material. I keep the roughness 0.5 and change the color to 35353, or maybe darker. Now for the camera frame, I want to use two sets of materials. The material of the rail around the camera island is shiny metal like the phone frame, but the surface parallel to the back of the phone is somehow matte. I set its material to the one we used for frame, but I select the back surface here, add a new slot, and create new material, make it metallic, cam frame matte, go to the render mode, and I assign it to this material. Now I need to make it darker. I decrease the roughness to 0.35. For hiding the background from distracting us, we can go to the render tab in the film. We can make it transparent. But if we want to see the Blender background, the Blender gray background, we can go to the world section, go to the array visibility and deselect the camera. That way we can see the Blender environment instead of the texture map. Now I continue with this shiny plastic material here. Select this one. It's new. I rename it to LiDAR. I don't know if it's really LiDAR or not. I set it to 0.1 and make it fully black. I think this one is a little too light.
I want to, the back matte color, I want to make its specular lower. I don't know if it's physically true or not, but it gives a better appearance to it. I make it 0.2. I go for the glass and export its UV layout. I select all by pressing A, UV, export UV layout. I rename it to the camera glass is good. I go to Figma and import that image. I temporarily rotate it 90 degrees, and for exporting I rotate it back. I have to import the reference image again. I want to make the surface transparent only in the camera parts and this part, but I want to make it a black shiny material in all other places. I Control X and frame this selection, and Control V, press 5 to set the opacity to 50%. I can hold down the control button and crop the image to move it more easily. Another approach can be taking a screenshot from our actual mesh to make sure we match the final result. I can go to the solid mode and go to the back view, hide the reference selection. I can go to the wireframe mode. I can hide this one. And I can simply take a screenshot. I can go back to Figma and Control V, press 5. As you can see, it matches with the reference image, so I can delete it. Now I press O to create circle. In order to make it perfect circle, hold down the Shift, press 5. Don't forget to press Shift when resizing, and press Alt Shift to scale it proportionally. Another one for this one. I use arrow keys. I scale it down to the edge of the lens and scale it up again to make sure it's perfectly centered. I press R to create rectangle. Press 5. And press Alt to increase its size. I can increase the radius here by sliding here. I select all of this and press align vertically center. Holding down Alt to duplicate this one and press Alt Shift and resize it here. Now we can hide this one and this one. Hold Control to select the UV image and hide that too. Now we have our mask map. Select all of this and press 0 to turn their opacity back to 100 and press plus here and make it pure black. Now we have to rotate it back, holding down Shift to be precise. I press Ctrl R to rename it to camera glass. Export 4x. I come back to Blender. Sometimes I can't find the nodes that I create. That time I have to search for them. But in this case, I haven't created any material yet. I go back to solid mode. I can now unhide the camera glass. Select the camera glass and go back to render mode. We only need one slot for this because we are handling the multiple material mode with mask image like what we did in the back panel. I create new material and rename it to camera glass. I place a glass BSDF and connect it to surface output. A principled BSDF. Connect it here, make it pure black, and shiny. Now we can connect it to a mix shader. Texture, image texture. Press Ctrl T, open our map, and connect it to the factor. I create camera plane material and create a rough somehow 0.8 fully black. And decrease its specular to 0.05. I first start shading the plastic part of the rings. I rename it to camera ring with the black material. .25. I can unhide the camera glass. I think it's too shiny. I will make it more rough and decrease the specular. I will add another material slot and rename it to camera lens. Create 0.05 rough. Make it somehow purplish and tab into edit mode, press L and assign these parts. I think the specular should have color. As you have seen on the real cameras, the light that is reflecting on the camera is somehow colored. Let's unhide the camera glass. The camera glass is not what I like. Let me change the lighting rotation. I go to the object mode. I will change the camera plane material specular level to something lighter and go to the lens setting, go to the camera glass material, change the IOR to 1 to have no refraction. I think the black parts should only be applied to inner layer of the camera glass, not the outer one. The outer should be a plain glass. So I will create a new slot. I create a new material, shader glass BSDF with IOR 1 selected, connected to the surface, and select this mesh, press slash, go to the left view, go to the shading mode, go to the solid mode, press Alt Z, and select the, go to the left. I think I have to select this part. That's correct. I have to assign this once to this material. Slash again and go back to render mode. I think we are good. Maybe the camera lens is too saturated color. I think it's better now. And more bluish. I'll rename it to glass. As more render passes will pass, the inside of the camera will be more light. I want to change the specular for the camera ring to something lighter. Make it more rough. That's too much. Make it less rough. Okay. For the USB Type-C, we have some surfaces around the phone's frame that we want just to have black surface because they're not so visible to waste our time with. I go to the solid mode. I now selected the frame. I will add a slot for holes and create a fully black material. Keep this as it is and select the surfaces you want to be fully black. I assign. Control Z, I deselect this one and assign. With middle mouse, I slide this. This surface has 3 and assign this one. I think I assign this one wrongly. this one here. Sign. Control Alt select. Sign. Control Alt select. Sign. Control plus. Sign. Go back to render view. Don't forget to save your file. I can decrease the specular to make it more dark. Okay, now I want to create the material for the screen. I go to the object mode and create new material. As you can see, we see a line here because this vertex is not connected to any other vertex from this surface. We can select this one and this one, press M at last to merge it down. We press A to select all, go to the UV editing tab. We can see that our UV map is corrupted here. Press U and Q projection. Now we press 3 to go to surface mode. Press A to select all. Hold down Shift and Shift L to deselect the main screen. Now we can see the ear speaker and the bezels are projected here. We don't need any maps for them, so we move them to the side and scale them down. The main part is here. We can select these. We can deselect these vertices. I can create a new material slot on the go. Selfie glass. Press tab to go to edit mode and assign that to selfie glass. And I select these vertices. Press Ctrl plus. No, it doesn't work like that. I can select these ones. Now we have successfully selected the screen part of the front panel. I press Ctrl 3 to go to surface mode. Press Ctrl minus to leave the room for the bezels. Now I can simply select this for faces. Now I can create a new material slot for the screen. And assign these to material. The first slot is a bezel. For the bezel part, I create a shiny black material. And for this ear speaker part, I can create another slot. Press 3. Now I'm in the surface mode. and I can assign that to this slot and select holes and give material of the holes to this part too. For the screen part, I have downloaded the Google Pixel official wallpaper for the Pixel 9 Pro XL Black. Press Shift A and add an emission shader. Press Shift A texture, image texture. I can change the emission strength to, for example, 1.5. And for selfie glass, I can simply add a glass shader. I can make it a little bit darker. Now I can hide the screen. And for the selfie camera part, I can first use camera ring material, and for the lens part, I press L, create new slot, assign it, and use camera lens material for it. Unhide the screen. Now I want to go to the flash. For the flash glass, I can use selfie glass and hide the mesh. For the actual flash part, I go to the UV editing. As you can see, I have unwrapped it before. I have used Figma for this. I have created a flash image by cropping the real pixel font. I have cropped this part and placed in a square texture, and I can now import it in Blender. I search for brightness. I can decrease the brightness to -0.2 to make it more clear. The flash glass doesn't work here because I have made it dark, the selfie glass. I duplicate it and rename it to flash glass. Make it white and a little bit rough. Now when we want to make the flash on, the flashlight on, we can give it emission. Like this. I think now we are good to go for rendering our scene. I have to create a camera and set up composition for a perfect angle. Then I can review the material properties. Maybe I have to change, for example, brightness and roughness in some places. Now I forgot to turn on cycles in GPU mode. If you have an RTX GPU, might be better to go to GPU compute. It is so faster. Now I want to disable HDRI lighting to add up my own area lights from Blender. I add a horizontal split here. Allocate one of them to 3D viewport. In this view, I disable this one so that I don't see any grid. I add an area light here. I move it up. I add a camera too. Go to the camera and make sure it is locked so that when I move in this viewport, the camera moves with me. Press GZ. I press N. I'm making it round, 135. I select the camera and make the focal length 120 millimeters. It's a good number for product visualization. I press G, Z twice to move along the camera normal. I increase the area light hover. I disable the lock here so that when I want to change anything in the scene, the camera doesn't change its position and rotation. I want to make a copy of my phone and rotate it 180 degrees so that two phones stay parallel together, one showing the front screen and another showing the back panel. Make sure that you unhide the frame guide, select the parent empty, and select hierarchy so that all of the objects get selected. We can shift the Y, select the parent empty, RZ 180. Now we can select both empties, hold down the dot and set it to individual origins. R, X, 30 degrees. We can bring it closer to the phone. Select both of them and try to place them centered. Now I select the camera. I press GZ. You know what, instead of rotating the camera, we can rotate the phone and add our lighting based on the camera. Because if the camera is aligned to the Y-axis, all other lights can be controlled faster and easier. I select both of the phones. Bounding box center. RZ 45. No, RZ minus 45. Now we can set the pivot to 3D cursor. Make sure the cursor is in the world origin. And now we can hold down the control and press N. We can see that it is round. I have rotated the phone wrongly. I think this is good. Press G, Z twice. I want to go to the camera view. G, Y twice. Select the camera, press G, Z twice. Now we can hide the guide frame mesh. Make sure the camera is selected. Go to the camera, viewport display, and maximize this. Now I disable the lock here, go outside the camera view. Here is our camera pointing down. I will add a rim light parallel to the camera normal. Press Shift D, right click, make sure the pivot point is 3D cursor. R, X, hold down the control. Now we have a rim light around our object. Press GY. Can decrease its size. Change the power. I decrease the top light height. Now it's showing up our problems with our materials. For example, the camera glass, it's too rough. The cut here should be more visible. So we go to the camera glass slide, decrease its lightness to 0.01, and I think we can make the glass a little bit darker so that the details won't be so visible. The frame should be a little bit less rough. Now when I duplicate this and rotate, another problem is we can't see any reflection on the screen. It's like it's too matte. Maybe we should use a principled BSDF shader instead of emission one, so that we can control its roughness. We can decrease its specular so that it won't reflect that much of white. I will do the same for the bezel. And also for the selfie glass. As you can see, we can control the specular here. I should use the principled shader here. I increase the transmission to set it transparent and decrease the specular. I decrease the roughness to 1. Change the alpha. I don't know if what I'm doing is wrong or right, but I'm just doing guesswork here. I changed the roughness for the back panel. I want the line light here. Later I will need a gradient plane here at the left of these two phones, so that we have a gradient reflection on the frame. Now I'm just playing with the materials. For example, the antenna. Can be darker a little bit. Or the Google logo. be less rough. Okay, if you are seeing the lights in your screen, just make sure that when you select a light, in the object menu, in the visibility, the camera is turned off. Otherwise, you have a screen like this. Now I'm trying to make the materials better. For the glass part, I will create a principled BSDF. Make the specular tint black and make a transmission 1. Make the roughness 0.01 and give it a bluish color. Decrease the saturation. Make the IOR 0.45. Make the IOR 145. Now I can copy this node, go to the camera glass, paste it here and use it as the glass BSDF here. I also can copy it and use it as the selfie glass too. Now it's time to add a gradient light at the left of the phone to have the professional look we see on, for example, iPhones. Shift D, right click, RZ, hold down the control. This is a plain white light. I want to create gradient so that at the bottom of the image we have a somehow white light, and at the top when we reach the corner of the phone the light turns off. To do that, I will select use nodes. I will create a gradient texture here. Press Ctrl T. Use the object as vector and connect this one to color ramp. And connect it to the color. We can use ease mode. I think linear is better. I select the camera, press GZ twice to zoom in and GZ to move it. Maybe we can decrease the saturation here to 0.3. To decrease the blueness, I select the frame. Roughness is good. I select the light. Select ease. I rotate the light. I don't like this white edges here. I rotate the light. Now you can see we have some black edges appear. This is so much better. Now it's looking good. Change the power. Not much difference. I think we are good to render the image. Now I want to add depth of field to the camera. First, I need to add an empty to the scene. I add a sphere empty, decrease its size. Now when we move the empty, the focus changes. Now I go to the camera. I play with this number. Starting to move this to the camera location. We can see before and after. Now we are going to cycle settings, render settings, and decrease the max samples. Maybe 800 is enough. I'll keep the settings as is, and I press render. I press escape. As you see, I forgot to hide the objects from being rendered. For example, the frames. Just check any object that is hidden from the scene should be hidden from being rendered. I press render again. I think the depth of field has made this part so blurry. I make this resolution 200%. Select the camera and disable the depth of field to see if it results any better. It is rendering region. I don't know why. I press escape. I don't know if it's a bug or is it my mistake, but when I set it back to 100%, the image render is becoming normal and there is no region rendering. I think not using depth of field results a better render in this scenario because our phone is angled and using depth of field blurs a big portion of our phone. Thank you guys for watching this tutorial and don't forget to like and subscribe this channel for more tutorials later.